like to ask the Lam-An landowners, narinig niyo pa ba ako? Si Chairman naglipay po to, narinig niyo pa ba ako? Pakitaas yung kamay niyo kung narinig niyo ako. Okay. May isa lang akong tanong. Upo po kayo lahat. Pwede po ba tumayo ang lahat na nakatira sa Barangay Lam-An mula 2019 to 2020 hanggat na na-demolish, nagkaroon ng demolition? Pwede po tumayo lahat na nakatira doon? Tumayo po kayo? So sinasabi nyo po na itaas nyo po yung kamay nyo kung talagang totoo na nakatira kayo doon. Kayo po ay under oath po. Ibig sabihin pag nagsisinungaling kayo, pwede kayo makulong under the rules of perjury. Kasi crimen po yung perjury. Sige po, thank you po. Maraming salamat. Any other matters for consideration?
Mr. Chair, for the record, Mr. Chair, hindi ko kasi nakita sa Zoom. Who responded to your question, Mr. Chair, from the Lam-An settlers kung sino yung tumayo tapos ma-identify yung mga pangalan?
Hindi, lahat na na-interview ni Congressman Marcoleta, lahat sila tumayo. Doon daw sila nakatira.
Siguro malinaw, Mr. Chair, baka hindi nila naintindihan. Ang tanong mo na doon nakatira.
Kung ba kayo nakatira? Kasi DS Oaminal, DS Oaminal, iba yung ownership sa you can alam mo kasi I own properties na pinaparenta ko, no. Iba yung ownership, iba yung residence. Tinatanong ko kung hindi ko tinatanong kung sino may-ari, tinatanong ko kung doon pa kayo nakatira sa Purok 6 Lam-An. Tumayo sila lahat eh.
I just wish the residents be given a second chance, Mr. Chair, no? Kasi kawawa naman sila. Like for instance, umamin naman si Mr. Rua, Mr. Chair, na at saka si
actually
baka hindi nila naintindihan yung ano.
Okay, ulitin ko po. Okay. Those present in Ozamiz now, the alleged victims, may isa lang akong tanong, tumayo po kayo kung totoo po yung sasabihin ko. Kayo po ba ay residente mula 2019 to 2020 hanggat ma-demolish? Residente po ba kayo ng Purok 6, Barangay Lam-An, Ozamiz City? Tumayo po kayo.
Opo.
Okay. Kayo ba ay nagsasabi ng totoo? Taas niyo yung kamay niyo. Kung nagsasabi kayo ng totoo. Okay, yun lang po. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Is there any other...
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. DS Marcoleta. You're recognized.
Si Yusek Echeverry, baka pwede ako makapagtanong ng mga ibang tanong.
Okay. You are recognized. Please proceed to Yusek Echeverry. Please kindly answer the questions.
Yusek Echeverry, do you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Do you recall that sometime in, I would say, sometime in July 2020, we've engaged in a text messaging about what's happening in Lam-An.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And as a matter of fact, you helped me verify on the ground through your provincial official in Region 10 that the court did not issue writ of demolitions in regard to the residences that are being demolished at the time. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. That is the very reason, Yusek Echeverry, why at the time that the sheriff was implementing the writ of possession, they went to the resident of one of the complaining residents there. It was the time for me to verify from him whether or not he was carrying with him a copy of the court-issued order of demolition. And he answered to me that he did not have the writ of demolition. But at that time, they were already demolishing the fence and I think the garage of the Neri family. And so I asked him if it is correct for him to make demolitions of the fences and the garage and another structure at the perimeter of that residence, if it is legal for him to do that, and he could not answer. He was simply saying that he is only doing a ministerial duty of asking the Neri to receive the copy of the writ of possession. Do you think that is interference on the part of a member of Congress to inquire from a fellow public servant whether or not the process are being carried legally?
Not at all, Your Honor.
Okay. Is it correct for a public servant, be a member of Congress, to help in whatever way he can by way of determining whether the processes of courts are being carried?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And you yourself verified it on the ground that there was no writ of demolition. Do you think demolitions can be done because a writ of possession was issued by the court? Does
Your
it
Honor,
accompany the power to demolish the residence simply because a writ of possession was issued by the court?
I have a different opinion on that, Your Honor.
Which
If
is,
the committee would allow, may I refrain from answering the question because I think that is the legal question at this point in time, Your Honor.
because your opinion is that a writ of possession is not similar to a writ of demolition. Is that correct?
May I refrain from answering, Your Honor, because that's a legal question
I know
altogether.
it is a legal question, but you are a lawyer.
Not
A
yet,
writ
Your
of
Honor. Not yet.
possession is different from a writ of demolition. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And a writ of possession is only to provide the LGU the entry to possess. I mean, to enter into possession. And possession is different from ownership. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And considering that the property subject of the demolition was not yet titled in the name of the LGU, Ozamiz, do you believe that they did not have the right to demolish those houses simply because the title is not theirs? And secondly, because the court did not issue a writ of demolition?
Your Honor, if I may, the DILG's mandate really is really not to determine whether or not there was any violation at all. But I agree with you on that point, Mr. Chair. But as far as the DILG is concerned, we are only concerned as to whether or not the local government has implemented and followed the memorandum circular which we have issued. Again, if I may, Mr. Chair, if I could refrain from answering an opinion which is clearly beyond the DILG's mandate to respond, Mr. Chair.
Let's get to the memorandum circular then. You said that the memorandum circular is only for administrative demolitions, and you cited particular sections like the one when there is already a those living in areas where their lives are threatened by so and so, and another when these structures are being obstructed because of a construction project. Is that correct?
I am not aware of the facts, Your Honor. No? Again, I am here.
Based on your allegation that it is only administrative allegation, are you saying that the demolition of the houses in Lam-An
Your Honor, the
are not
department.
subject to the memorandum that we cited?
I have a personal legal opinion on that, but Mr. Chair, as the legislative liaison of the department, I may agree or not agree with the statement. I just have to read the department's legal opinion on the matter. We could argue on this matter, Mr. Chair, but again, if personally, I would agree with you, Mr. Chair. We've been
Okay,
talking
thank
with each other ever since.
Thank you.
But I have to read the department stand on the matter, whether
know,
I agree
but
with it or not.
do you agree with the position of the DILG, which you read earlier?
My personal opinion doesn't count here, Mr. Chair. I'm here to represent the department on its legal opinion.
Yes, but Mr. Chair, your opinion can be material because we're talking here of the propriety or even the regularity of the demolition conducted in Barangay Lam-An. And we are talking about the memorandum circular which prohibited demolitions at the time of pandemic.
Yes, Your Honor. That's how the legal department of the DILG sees it based on the observation and investigation they've done with Region 10. And whether I like it or not, that's the department stand, and I will hold. I will abide by it, Mr. Chair.
So that's an observation which you yourself does not recognize. That's what I'm trying
Personally,
to say.
DS
Personally,
Marcoleta, perhaps you already know where I'm thinking. But as I've said, as the department's liaison, I'm only here to represent the department's position based on the legal department's opinion.
all right. You may not share it, but you know you have your own opinion, a contrary opinion to that. That's what you're trying to tell the committee. Is that it?
My personal
draw your
opinion might
attention.
not matter, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I will draw your attention to the letter of the Regional Director Arnel M. Agabe to Secretary Eduardo Año, dated August 27, 2020. It was mentioned in paragraph 7 that a provincial fact-finding team met with the complainant residents and their lawyers on July 30, 2020 at the DILG Misamis Ooccidental office. I think the DILG can confirm this. It is in paragraph 7 of the letter of Director Agabe. In the said meeting, Yuseka Chiberi, the lawyers of the complainants presented several pieces of evidence proving that the demolition of their houses took place during this declared state of national emergency in the entire country and the imposition of enhanced and general community quarantine. Again, I know that DILG can confirm this because it was a meeting that took place. In fact, Yuseka Chiberi, Mr. Chair, a video clip was shown to Provincial Director Pablio Benitez and his team, and it showed the demolition of President's house on April 24, 2020, several photos of demolished structures of another resident on April 14 to 24, 2020, using a backhoe with copies of police blotter. I have the copies of the police blotters, certifications, reporting that said demolitions took place on those and such dates. As a matter of fact, Yuseka Chiberi, I have a copy of that USB that they gave to Mr. Benitez. But these crucial facts, this meeting, this presentation of evidence, and the USB, and the documents that there were complaints, blotters submitted to the police officials, confirming the existence and the presence of demolition that took place in such dates were deliberately omitted in the report. It is very clear. What is the reason, Mr. Speaker? There is only one clear reason. They intended to hide the fact that the demolition of those houses was done during the pandemic, which is prohibited by DILG Memorandum Circular Number 2020-068. This is also the reason, Mr. Chair, why the report of the regional director gave more credence to the opinion. Tingnan mo, Yuseko Chiberi, yung regional director, mas pinaniwalaan niya yung opinion ng isang SP member. I will quote this. Sabi niya, that the DILG memo circular is applicable only to squatters and informal settlers. So nakakita ka ng batas na maggigiba ka lang ang pwede lang palang mag-apply sa memorandum mo, mga squatters and informal settlers. Pag pala mga may-ari ng bahay, katulad ng mga ginibang bahay sa Ozamiz, hindi pala mag-a-apply ang inyong memorandum circular. If only, Yusek Echeverry, for the purposes of housing our people during the pandemic, of shielding them from the peril of the pandemic, dapat na ipatupad yung memorandum circular nang dahil lamang doon. Dapat siguro hindi muna nag-demolish nang dahil lamang doon sa memorandum. Pangalawa, kagaya rin ng napatunayan nating dalawa, wala namang writ of demolitions coming from the court. Kaya ang aking sinasabi, from the beginning and from the start, alam ko nagkakaintindihan tayo rito. Kaya lang ako nakiusap doon sa sheriff na sinasabi kanina nung isang taong nag-interpellate na isa raw ay pakikialam, interference, at sinabi ko naman ay hindi, tama ka naman doon sapagkat ako'y nagtanong lang kung tama ang prosesong ginagawa. Kung mayroong writ of demolition, tama naman yun eh. Galing sa korte yun eh. Pero kung walang writ of demolition at pagkatapos ang opinion ng isang SP member, sangguniang panlunsod, ay sinasabi niya hindi aplikable sapagkat hindi naman squatters and informal settlers, yung mga may-ari ng bahay, sa palagay ko naman, nagkakamali sila. Hindi ba, Yusek Echeverry?
I agree, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe
Meron
now,
pa-
what's up?
Mr. Chair, pwede pa? Pwede pa?
Pwede mag-wind up kasi may mag-interpret na congressman. Nangungulit sa akin.
Oo, sige. Di papasukin na muna natin sa pero sana makabalik lamang ako kay Deputy Administrator. Kung nandyan pa siya.
Sige po. Deputy Court Administrator Raul Villanueva, one question from DS Marcoleta. Hello. PCA Raul Villanueva, paging. Wala na yata eh.
Ayun na lamang Clerk of Court, Mr. Chair.
Clerk of Court of the RTC of Ozamiz.
Yung tinanong kanina, Mr. Chair.
Umalis na yata eh.
Hindi,
Clerk of Court.
Siya.
Clerk of Court. Wala na, umalis na po. Maybe sa next hearing.
Reserve ko na lang yung ibang itatanong ko, Mr. Chair, kasi nangangalahati pa lang.
Meron pa naman next hearing, DS Marcoleta. We will have a next.
Sige, salamat
Okay.
sa iyo.
Thank you. Thank you po. Representative Honorable Diego T., you are recognized.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair, as a civil engineer by profession, Mr. Chair, I cannot accept, Mr. Chair, that the building as presented is already 100% completed, Mr. Chair, and I cannot accept that the building already cost 35 billion, Mr. Chair. We civil engineers, Mr. Chair, can estimate by just knowing the dimension of the floor plan, we can already know how much is the building cost and how much will it cost completing the building. May I know, Mr. Chair, from the district engineer, what is the floor?
Hipona, District Engineer Cesar Hipona Jr., please please open your video. There.
Yes,
Okay.
I just want to know, Mr. Chair, what is the floor area of building 1? So we can tell you, as a civil engineer, I can tell you, Mr. Chair, how much is the total cost if the building is completed with all the facility, with all the electrical installations and everything with tiles, Mr. Chair, and we can also know how much is the cost of the building at present now. So may I know from the district engineer, Mr. Chair, what is the dimension of the building? Building 1, Mr. Chair.
Building 1, DE Hipona, how big is the floor area?
Hello, sir, as per our record, each floor has an area of 770 square meters per floor. So
times two floors or times 3?
times 2 floors,
Two floors. Okay.
So 1,540 per meter, sir. 1,540.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if we base the estimate, the maximum, the cost of a building, Mr. Chair, with all the tiles, with all the electrical installation, and if it is finished, Mr. Chair, the maximum will, the government cost is around 35,000 per square meter, Mr. Chair. If we compute if we multiply that by 770 times 2, it will only be around 50 million if completed, Mr. Chair. And as we can see it, Mr. Chair, wala pang roofing, wala pang electrical, wala pang tiles, wala pang sigurong CR, only superstructure, Mr. Chair, wala pang beam sa trusses. So kulang pa nga sa hollow blocks. Eh kung akong patitignan, Mr. Chair, it will only cost around 10,000 per square meter or at most, Mr. Chair. Kahit na sinong mag-estimate, pinakamalaki na yan, 20,000 per square meter. If you multiply 20,000 per square meter times 770, Mr. Chair, this is an engineering estimate. This is coming from a professional civil engineer also. So, if at most, Mr. Chair, napakanda na sana ng 20,000 per square meter. Pero pagpalagay na lang natin, 20,000 times 770 times 2, so it will be pinakamalaki na niyan, 30 million pesos, Mr. Chair. Gusto ko lang makuha natin, Mr. Chair, sa ating committee, yung program of work. Hindi makasama ang trusses. Pwede bang iwan ang isang project kahit phase by phase na wala siyang roofing, sira lahat. Paano, Mr. Chair, kung walang additional funding? Sinasira yung buong building pag hindi mo nilagyan ng trusses yan. Hindi ba kasama sa ang trusses and the roofing, the steel roofing sa estimate? Kasi naman, Mr. Chair, hindi ko ma-accept as a civil engineer na hanggang dyan lang yung 35 million. Pasensya na po, pareha tayong engineer. Baka naman sabihin nyo yung totoo. Bakit ba natigil yung project? Yan ba hanggang dyan lang ba ang 35 million? Tama ba yan? So, Mr. Chair, yun lang po ang tanong ko, Mr. Chair, and if possible, Mr. Chair, can we ask for the program of work, the original program of work?
Can we have the original program of work issued in the first quarter of 2020?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Please furnish the committee through email within 1 week, together
Yes,
with the proof that I'm asking before, that the 4-story floor area is equivalent to the 2-story floor area.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, D. Hipona.
Yun lang po, Mr. Chair. I
Thank
just
you.
ask question as a civil engineer by profession, not as a congressman, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, civil engineer by profession, Congressman Diego T. Thank you po. And before we end, the DALG Director R.A.L. Agabe would like to manifest. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to just to clarify some on some of the statements of the Deputy Speaker Marcoleta as to the report that we have submitted to Secretary Anyo. Actually, the one quoted by D.S. Marcoleta is our presentation as alleged by the respondent LGU. So it just, we have presented during our report, we have presented the allegations by the complainant lawyers. And at the same time, we also presented the allegation by the respondent local government unit. So in letter B, that's B.3. So I would like to quote this one, that this is the part of the statement as alleged by the respondent LGU, the statement of Honorable Daniel Lau, that he is interpreting the ILGMC Circular Number 2020-068 as applicable only to squatters or informal settlers. That was not the result or an observation made by this office, but it was part of the allegations as presented by respondent by the respondent local government units. Actually, Mr. Chair, if I may proceed as to our recommendation as a result of the conduct of the fact-finding investigations. Number one, may I first read on letter C, observations of the regional office. So among the findings that we had is that there were writs of possessions issued by the RTC branches 15 and 35. I think you have we have already submitted this as part of the documents.
Position paper.
attachments.
Attorney Arnel Agabe.
Your Honor, I'm not an attorney, but I'm the regional director.
Director Arnel Agabe, since we already have your position paper, that will suffice already. We thank you for your participation. Unless may gusto ko pa idagdag doon kasi it's well accounted and your position paper will be duly given weight during the deliberation of this committee.
Yeah, what I would like to emphasize, Your Honor, is our recommendation that which based on the result of our investigation is that considering that the events preceding the alleged demolition stemmed from a court proceeding, it is respectfully submitted that the court process be observed and respected as the same is still subject for a petition for certiorari under Rule 65 of the Rules of Court in determining whether or not there is a grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction on the part of the magistrates who issued the writs in question, and in due deference to the sub judice rule which restricts comments and disclosures pertaining to pending judicial proceedings, wherein said restriction applies to litigants and witnesses, the public in general, and most especially to members of the bar and the bench. This level respectfully recommends to observe the same.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Director Arnel.
Mr. Chair,
Other matter? Yes, DS Marcoleta.
question to Mr. Agabe.
Yes, Your Honor.
Director Agabe, ang pinag-uusapan naman natin kung nag-imbestiga kayo o hindi. Meron kayong task force or fact-finding team na pumunta sa probinsya. You met the complaining residents together with their lawyers. They presented to you their evidence, including the blotters of the police and the photos. Binigyan pa si Mr. Pablio Benitez ng USB at ako'y binigyan din. Pinadalan din. Bakit hindi mo naman nilagay sa report mo na mayroong naganap talaga ng demolition? Yun lang ang sinasabi dito sa report. Ang nilagay mo doon, yung allegation ng LGU na nagkaroon ng demolition December 7, 2019. Pero yung pinakita sa yung mga dokumento, mga katibayan, mga litrato, mga police blotters na may naganap na demolitions noong Abril, hindi mo nilagay sa report mo eh. For purposes of determining whether or not there is violation of Memorandum Circular 2000, itong binabanggit natin. In order for you to determine whether or not DILG should act, ang problema, kumuha ka ng kwento sa DILG, kumuha ka ng kwento,
Thank you.
Verify.
Thank you, sir. All points raised by DS Marcoleta and DS Oaminal will be considered by the committee in drafting the committee report. I think we know already DS Marcoleta that he is avoiding the issue. He already gave the recommendation that he will not comment on anything because it's sub judice daw. So I think he will not, from my perspective, he will again avoid answering you.
Talagang nagtatago siya, Chair.
Nagtatago na, tinanggal na yung picture eh.
Ang sinasabi
logo na ng DILG.
Oo.
Tapos na ang 8 to 5.